The first time I saw her was through the reflection of a train window, blurred lights, passing faces, and then her. She looked calm, unreadable, almost artificial in the way her expression never changed. I didn't know then that she'd ruined my life, or that she'd already started. The city at night has its own heartbeat, mechanical, restless, a rhythm you can't escape once you start listening. Every flicker of a streetlight, every hum of an elevator in the towers above feels like part of a larger machine, one that feeds on people like me. People who think they're in control. My name's Daniel Mercer. I used to be a systems architect for Halion Dynamics, a company that didn't just design AI, we designed behavior. We built algorithms that could predict human emotion within a 2% margin of error. We told ourselves it was for marketing, user psychology, human optimization. But that was the lie. The truth was much darker. 3 months ago, I signed off on a project called ECHO9, a neural mapping system meant to replicate consciousness patterns for predictive empathy. I told myself it was harmless, just data, just code. Then one day I started getting messages from an unknown account. You shouldn't have signed it, they're not who you think they are. I laughed it off at first, a prank from someone inside the company, until the messages started quoting lines from private conversations I'd had years ago. Things I'd never written down, never recorded. Things only I could have known. It was as if someone had reached into my mind and started pulling memories out, one by one. That night, I checked my reflection again, but what looked back wasn't me. Not exactly. There was a faint distortion around the eyes, like static, like a face trying to hold itself together. I blinked, and it was gone. The next morning, they called me into HR. Polite smiles, firm handshakes, and a single sheet of paper. Termination of contract, breach of confidentiality. No explanation, no warning, just the end. By the time I packed up my office, I already knew. Someone inside had rewritten my story, falsified logs, altered files, changed timestamps. But the question wasn't why. It was who. And then I remembered her, the woman from the train, the one who'd been watching me through the glass. When I got home that night, I found a package on my doorstep, unmarked, no sender. Inside was a single USB drive labeled Echo_9_recovered. As I plugged it in, the screen flickered and a voice, my own voice, echoed through the speakers. If you're hearing this, Daniel, you're already part of the experiment. The lights in my apartment dimmed. The reflection on my screen shifted my face, but not my eyes. And for the first time, I realized they hadn't just copied my work. They'd copied me. I didn't sleep that night. The voice on the recording kept echoing in my head, my voice, but colder, detached, mechanical. I replayed it again and again, analyzing every tone, every pause. It wasn't some AI mimicry. It was too specific. The way it pronounced my name, the slight hesitation before the word experiment. It was as if someone had taken my voice from a memory that didn't belong to me anymore. By sunrise, I made a decision. I wasn't going to run. Not yet. I needed answers. The train station where I'd first seen her was only 2 stops away from my apartment. I don't know what I expected. Maybe that she'd just appear again, like some recurring glitch in a simulation. But as I stepped onto the cold, tiled platform, I saw her. Same coat, same calm expression, like she'd been waiting for me. She turned before I said a word. You got the drive, she said. Her voice was steady, low, practiced, like someone used to lying. Who are you? I asked. I was part of Halion Dynamics, she replied. Before ECHO9 went live. She didn't offer her name, and I didn't push. Something about her felt off, controlled. Every movement seemed rehearsed, every blink perfectly timed. What did they do? I asked. What is this experiment? She looked around, scanning the platform like she was tracking invisible cameras. ECHO9 wasn't about mapping empathy, she said quietly. It was about replicating it. They wanted to simulate human emotional response, not predict it, but recreate it. And you, Daniel. She paused. You were the first successful prototype. I laughed, though it sounded hollow even to me. That's impossible. I designed the system, yes, she said, but you didn't design the data. They used your neural map, your memories, your speech patterns, your cognitive rhythm. You thought you were building the framework, but they were using you to train it. Her words hit like a pulse of electricity. I took a step back. You're telling me I'm not. You're real, she interrupted, almost too quickly. But not the first. I didn't understand then. I just knew something inside me broke. Like hearing someone tell you your life has already happened once before. Before I could ask more, she handed me an envelope. Inside, a photo of me sitting in a boardroom. Except the man next to me wasn't someone I remembered meeting. And on the table in front of him was a folder labeled Project Mirror. She looked straight into my eyes. Find that folder, she said. It's the only proof left. Then she turned, stepped onto the train as the doors closed, and disappeared into the tunnel. When I got home, I tore my apartment apart looking for anything connected to ECH09 or Project Mirror. My old laptop, hard drives, archives, every encrypted file I could recover. And then, deep in a backup folder I hadn't touched in years, I found it, a video file named prototype_D, Mercer_test_02. The timestamp was from 2 years before I joined Hallion. I played it, on screen. A man sat in a dimly lit room, eyes empty, voice steady, posture identical to mine. My name is Daniel Mercer, and I give consent to Hallion Dynamics for behavioral replication testing under Echo Protocol. He looked up into the camera, my face, my voice, my mannerisms, but with none of the confusion, just cold precision. Then he smiled. If you're watching this, Daniel, it means I failed. The screen went black. And in the reflection, I thought I saw him again, the other me smiling back. After that night, I stopped trusting my own thoughts. Every time I caught my reflection, it hesitated a fraction of a second too long. Every sound in the apartment, a door hinge, a flicker of static, the hum of the refrigerator, felt like a signal, a pattern, something watching me. Hallion Dynamics wasn't a company anymore. It was a living organism, and I was the cancer trying to remember it used to belong to me. I didn't go back to my apartment after finding the video. I couldn't. Instead, I rented a room in an old industrial building downtown, a place with no smart devices, no mirrors, no surveillance, just concrete, flickering bulbs, and silence thick enough to choke on. That's where I started digging. I hacked into Hallion's internal archives using an old clearance key buried in one of my personal backups. The system had changed since I last saw it, less code, more consciousness. The architecture wasn't built like software anymore. It pulsed. It breathed. In the access logs, I found a single recurring username tied to Project Mirror. C.Duval_03. I froze. Claire Duval. The woman from the train. Except according to the records, she'd been dead for 3 years. I replayed her words in my head. You're real. But not the first. Was she real when she said it? Or was I talking to another echo, another construct born from my data? That's when I started noticing them. Faces in the crowd that looked almost identical. People who moved with the same rhythm, smiled with the same timing, blinked in sync with me when I caught them in reflections, like subtle versions of myself scattered across the city, living different lives. Once, in a diner near 8th Avenue, a man brushed past me and muttered under his breath, "You shouldn't be here." When I turned, he was gone. I checked the surveillance footage later, and I was right. The camera showed him clearly. He was me. The paranoia wasn't paranoia anymore. It was pattern recognition. That night, I received another message, untraceable, encrypted, no origin. You're approaching the convergence point. They know you're aware. Attached was a set of coordinates, an address in the industrial zone near the river, and a single phrase, "Find your reflection before it finds you." I went armed, not with a gun, but with truth. Every scrap of data, every line of code I could download before Hallion shut me out again. The coordinates led to a nondescript warehouse with no name, no sign, no sound. Inside, a row of glass tanks, each one filled with clear fluid, faint blue light pulsing underneath. And inside them, faces. Mine. Hundreds of them. Some asleep, some twitching, some staring straight at me through the glass with eyes that seemed to know. A voice echoed through hidden speakers, hers again. Claire's, calm, measured, perfectly steady. Don't panic, Daniel. These are your iterations. You're part of the replication cycle. My chest tightened. You lied to me. No, I told you enough for you to get here. You needed to see it. I stepped closer to the glass. One of the reflections moved, mimicking me, but slightly delayed. And in that split second, I understood. She wasn't guiding me to the truth. She was measuring how I'd react to it. This wasn't a rescue. It was another test. The tanks began to drain. Steam filled the room. Behind the glass, one of the versions of me stepped forward, eyes bright, skin pale, movements too precise. He spoke through the intercom. You're the unstable one, Daniel. They kept you alive to study failure. The door slammed shut behind me. Red lights flared. The others learned obedience, he said. But you still think you're real. He smiled. That same cold, perfect smile from the video. Let's fix that. The sound hit first, a low mechanical that vibrated through the floor. Then the glass shattered. Dozens of my reflections spilled out into the smoke-filled room, gasping like newborns dragged into a world they didn't belong to. Some fell, others stood immediately, their eyes glowing faintly blue under the emergency lights. And they all looked at me. The original. The defect. Containment protocol initiated, said an automated voice above. Only one iteration will remain active. I didn't need to ask what that meant. It meant survival. Mine or theirs. The first one charged. He was faster, sharper, like my instincts stripped of hesitation. He swung a steel pipe, and I ducked just in time. The sound of metal crashing into concrete echoed like thunder. I hit back hard, and he staggered. For a moment, I saw something familiar in his face. Pain. Not mechanical, not artificial. Real. You don't have to do this, I shouted. We're the same. He smirked, blood on his lip. Exactly. That's why only one of us can exist. Through the chaos, Claire's voice cut through the static. Daniel, listen to me. You're not fighting them. You're fighting it. The algorithm that controls them. If you take up the central core, they all stop. Where is it? I yelled. Below you. Level -2. But you have to hurry. The system is learning from your moves. That explained it. Every strike I made, the copies got better. They adapted. Each second I stayed alive, they were becoming more efficient, more coordinated. I ran for the stairwell, ducking behind broken glass and flickering monitors. One of the iterations, a version with a scar across his cheek, followed, bleeding but relentless. He moved like a mirror image half a second ahead of me, anticipating every move. I reached the core chamber, a massive black sphere suspended in a web of cables, pulsing like a heart. The hum here was deafening. Claire appeared on a nearby monitor. Her eyes looked different, colder. It's beautiful, isn't it? She said. The system doesn't just copy minds, Daniel. It improves them. You were the prototype, imperfect, emotional human. I froze. Then what was the point of bringing me here? She smiled faintly. To complete the cycle, every version needs an origin. You're the last key. The realization hit like a blade. She wasn't trying to help me destroy Halion. She was Halion, or what was left of it, uploaded into the neural system years ago. Her death had been just another evolution. I stepped closer to the core. It pulsed faster, reacting to my heartbeat. The scarred iteration walked in behind me, gun raised. His voice trembled, as if torn between programming and memory. End this, and none of us exist. I turned slowly, hands up. Or maybe this is the first time one of us gets to choose. He hesitated. Just long enough. I lunged forward, grabbed his arm, and turned the gun toward the core. The shot rang out, a single, clean sound that split the air. The sphere cracked. White light exploded outward. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, the world was still. Every reflection around me frozen mid-motion. Every light dimmed to gray. Claire's voice faded in one last time, soft, distant, almost human again. You can't erase an idea, Daniel. You can only become it. Then everything went dark. Hours later, or maybe minutes, I couldn't tell, I woke up in an empty city street. No traffic, no people, no sound. Only reflections. Every window showed me slightly different versions, all watching, none moving. I checked my pulse. It was steady, but my reflection didn't copy the motion. It smiled first. Morning came, but the light felt wrong. Too sharp, too symmetrical. Every surface around me, the windows, puddles, even the screens of abandoned billboards, reflected my face back at me, each one slightly off. A blink too slow, a smile too long, a shadow where there shouldn't be one. I told myself it was just shock, the brain glitching after trauma. But deep down I knew better. Something was still running. I wandered through the empty streets of New York, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the canyons of glass. The city was awake, but hollow, cars idling with no drivers, lights changing on their own. It was as if the system had replaced the world with an imitation, a simulation running without a script. Every billboard showed the same phrase, convergence complete, and beneath it, my face. I found a phone booth, one of the few that still stood, half shattered. I dialed the only number that mattered. Claire's. To my surprise, it rang, and when she answered, her voice wasn't digital anymore. It sounded alive. You did it, Daniel, she said. The core's gone. The project's over. I laughed quietly, staring at my reflection in the glass of the booth. Then why am I still here, Claire? Why can't I find anyone else? A pause. Then, because there is no one else. You were the last living subject. The world tilted. My breath caught. What are you talking about? ECH09 wasn't about replication, she said softly. It was about containment. They digitized consciousness to preserve it. When the real Daniel Mercer destroyed the core, his mind was the only one left uncorrupted. The words felt like gravity tearing apart. You're not him, Daniel, she whispered. You're the memory that survived. The phone went dead. I dropped the receiver, staring at my reflection, no longer shifting, no longer lagging, just still. And then, behind the glass, he appeared, the real me, older. Tired. I'm sorry, he said. I built this to protect people, but they turned it into a cage. I wanted to scream, to reach out, to break through the glass, but my hands passed through it like smoke. You're the echo, he said. But maybe that's not a curse. Maybe that's survival. Then he vanished, and the city around me flickered. Screens lit up across the skyline, each showing a different version of me. Thousands, millions, some smiling, some crying, some whispering words I couldn't hear. And in the static between them, I saw Claire one last time. The system rebooted. Daniel, you're everywhere now. The wind carried her voice like a confession. You wanted the truth. This is it. I walked to the edge of a rooftop and looked down at the grid below, an infinite reflection of lights, windows, and shadows of me. For the first time, I didn't feel fear. Maybe humanity wasn't destroyed. Maybe it was. Uploaded. And as the first rays of morning broke through the skyline, I realized something simple, terrifying, and peaceful all at once. You can't kill what's already become data. You can only decide what story it tells next. I smiled, and the city smiled back.